Welcome back to Day After Saturday live coverage. I'm your host, Jackson. It sucks that we couldn't have our co-host Chris from Miss You, man. He's in the class, but nonetheless, we do have a very special guest here with us today. I'm really excited to have you here. He's the current head coach of the Haverford men's lacrosse team. He's a Mars Hill University alum, and he's actually the leader in ground balls there, 4-year defensive starter, and he made a program from scratch in Tusculum University. We're really happy to have you here. This is Mr. Coach Richard Carrington. So thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Jackson, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I know we kind of talked a little bit last year, and schedules didn't align, so happy we were able to kind of make this happen, this semester. I do feel a little bit duped, though, because you told me it was a podcast, and now as I see the camera over here, we're going to film.
My bad.
I've got a face. Yeah, I've got a face made for radio, so if you lose any viurs, I do apologize.
No, man, you ain't gonna lose any viewers, man. You got some guns, man. You got some guns.
Those are just for show.
All right, that's what's up. But my bad. I'll tell you next time.
No worries. No worries.
Man, so let's just hop right into it, man. So, we could just start with talking about a little bit where you're from and, how you got into the game of lacrosse.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Nice.
And I didn't live there for long. I really don't remember a lot of it. My mother, single mother at the time, but we did get a lot of support, from my grandmother, who was also living up there. But it was kind of just us. And at around about the age of 6 or 7, she accepted a job, actually kind of created a job for herself, convinced the post office to create a new position, and the position just so happened to be in Charlottesville, Virginia. Okay. So, had never been to Virginia before. Like, I'd only been really just in and around New York City, so really had no idea what the landscape may be. But she packed everything up, and we all moved to Charlottesville, and during that time in that transition, she also met my stepfather, who again I consider to be a father. He's been with me for majority of my life, and has been a big influence in my life. So I'd say born in Brooklyn, but raised in Charlottesville, Virginia, which was a fantastic community there.
That's amazing. That's a really cool story to hear how she made the position up at the post mail office. Just considering the fact that you kind of made Tusculum from scratch. We'll talk about that later, but I just like how that coincides with each other. Man. So, and just how what kind of drew you to lacrosse maybe as a kid? When you started, like what was the initial draw to the sport for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was not like a love at first sight type of situation. It was more like, what's going on over there? Like, what are they doing with those sticks? And why are people getting beat on? But I think, I grew up playing just about everything, though. Basketball, football, wrestling was actually my top sport.
Okay.
But track and field is as well. Running is probably my least favorite thing to do. So I was doing track because I don't know, it was kind of just what my friend group did.
Yeah, right.
But just in going to high school, kind of watching more and more like guys play lacrosse, I was like, well, I kind of want to give that a try. And it was intimidating at first. I did not play lacrosse as a freshman in high school just because it's. I think a lot of times there's social influences, and
right.
there wasn't anybody on the team that looked like me. So I just didn't want to try it as a freshman, but as a sophomore, you get a little bit more bold, and I was like, what, I'm going to give this thing a try, and actually set track aside to go into lacrosse, and I'm so glad that I did, because obviously it's been a passion of mine, and we've been able to make a career out of it, and from sophomore year, on in high school, I've played lacrosse or coached it or been around it in some form or capacity.
Yeah. So. And, adding on to that playing piece, man, you had an amazing career at Mars Hill, man. Like,
well, I don't know about amazing.
maybe
just a step above mediocre, maybe.
Okay, well, no, I wouldn't say mediocre, man. If you're leading the program in ground balls, and then you're a 4-year defensive starter, I say that's a pretty successful career.
Well, I appreciate that.
You seem like a guy. I know. I get it too. I'm hard on myself too. So I get that mentality that you got. Like you're like that. I'm this. But no, man. I'm trying to give you some credit, man. Yeah, you got it.
Well, I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah. What were your intentions, coming out of college? I mean, being a 4-year defensive starter, obviously the landscape's weird with lacrosse in terms of like professional. Did you know you wanted to go into coaching right away, or did you think you wanted to play maybe?
No, absolutely not. Coaching was like the furthest thing from my mind.
Okay.
I went to school with the intention of, eventually getting on ESPN and being a sports broadcaster.
That's exactly what I want to do right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, good. I think again, you're doing the right things to kind of like to make that happen for sure. But that was certainly a dream or aspiration of mine, and I also like writing. So I think even getting into other forms of journalism, any form of journalism, really was really of interest to me. Then
love that, dude. I'm a sports journalist, sports broadcaster.
Absolutely, can't beat what I mean. You get paid to watch sports and write about it. Like, what's better?
Yeah, you're 100% right.
And then at some point in college, I also realized, okay, I probably need a little bit more flexibility in my plans. So I just kind of picked up an English minor as well, just in case I needed to kind of like pivot and go into education. And after graduation, really the plan was, actually I had a few different plans, but I was going to actually go off to Europe and do a little bit of coaching and playing and continue my education. That plan fell through, and coaching just kind of fell in my lap as I was applying for jobs at newspapers, radio stations, and just wasn't getting any much interest. So my old high school coach told me, like, you're in town, like, why don't you come and coach with me? And I've been coaching ever since.
Right.
It's really just it's really been ingrained in just my the core of who I am for a long time, even though I didn't realize this would eventually be a profession for me. But even like I remember as a middle school athlete, and certainly in high school, like I was always kind of the guy that I don't know, some people might call it bossy, but like I just always kind of was like the coach on the field or the court.
Right. You're a leader.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't know about leader. I think a lot of people would say loudmouth, but regardless, I never felt bashful about like trying to help others develop and asserting my opinion, even if it was unwanted.
Right. Well, that's really respectable, man. My goal here today, before I leave, is for you to be like, I'm trying to give you as much credit as possible. I appreciate your humbleness, man, and I appreciate you being humble.
But that's about being Haverfordian, right? Humility. So.
Yeah, humility is a part of being Haverfordian. Yeah, but also giving credit when it's due, because I think that's necessary too to upload guys. But hey, it's your philosophy. I'm just living in your world right now. All right, so. Moving on now to like a big piece, and one of the biggest reasons I wanted to interview you today. When you first got the job, I was like, oh shit, like this is one of the coolest things, man. Like to really see a black lacrosse coach. Like I had never seen that, and I had known a little bit. My high school has a decent lacrosse team, a good lacrosse program in both ways, and every single player was white. So it was, when I first heard the news that you were coming, I was like, I wonder what the statistic was for, most, how many, black lacrosse coaches are there, and lacrosse players as well, and to see, 9% black for players and 3% for coaches, was, it wasn't disturbing, but it was more so expected. But moving on into that, man, like lacrosse is also embedded in such rich history in terms of how, dating back to like the 12th century, man, because I'm a sports historian, I really like this type of stuff, but dating back to like the 12th century with stickball and with Native Americans, and one thing I did know growing up about lacrosse, because I never knew a lot, was about Jim Brown. I knew Jim Brown is like the greatest lacrosse player ever, to a lot of people who knew about the sport, and for him to say that he would also go pro if he had the opportunity to do so, is really an incredible story to hear. Now, I thought about this in comparison to you. You had your career. It sounds like you were kind of thrown into the fire a little bit in terms of out of your curiosity, and the coaching career was a little bit planned out as well. Hope God bless your high school coach. But I'm curious. Again, this is kind of touching on the first question, but what was the initial draw to the game, and there's such a weird history with this sport in terms of it starting with so much culture, and now it's there's a huge racial disparity from all sides. I'm just curious, like, what was the initial draw in terms of like the game itself? Like, were you like, oh, the strategy, the physicality, Something along those lines. Because, I mean, I was literally just talking about this with my dad last night, and I was like, man, that's a question I really want to hear is just like, considering how the game is now, I mean, yeah, like I'd wonder, like, you're like sitting there, like you said, your freshman year, you're like, man, I don't know if I want to go out for this. Just because you're like, there's no one that looks like me out here. So then sophomore year, what drew you in? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like, and without, I guess, getting too meta here, but when you talk about, like, the story of lacrosse, like the actual story given to us, by the Haudenosaunee people, the indigenous people of the continent, it's a game that talks about being for everybody. Like,
Right.
in the story of lacrosse, it was actually a big game that was put on between the land animals and the sky animals, and the bat, who at the time it was a squirrel actually, and the squirrel, they didn't want to be a part of the land animal group, so we throw some wings on him, becomes a bat, and he ends up winning the game for the flighted animals.
Right.
So again, it's just a game about being inclusive and just everyone having an opportunity to play, and it really is to kind of watch it. It's so interesting, and that's really what kind of jumped off the page to me, and that's why it's kind of ironic that when you look at the numbers and kind of the statistics that you just kind of rattled off, it really is ironic in the fact that, like, it is an exclusive game, but the origin of it is inclusive. So I think that's
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of folks out there right now trying to course correct and make sure that we have a really inviting community in the lacrosse world. But I grew up playing all kinds of sports, and basketball probably was at the time like my favorite sport. And I've got some vertical limitations, so that career was short-lived.
You're a bruiser, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I live below the rim for sure. And when you look at lacrosse and its strategy, it really is basketball that we're talking about. Like, we utilize a lot of the same terminology, a lot of the same strategies and techniques. So I was a game that I felt that I picked up pretty quickly because of my comfort level with basketball.
That's awesome to hear, man. I mean, now, man, that's going to make it a lot easier to learn all aspects of terminology when it comes to lacrosse. I still, I have a lot to learn, being completely honest with you, but I still feel like now you saying that, man, because, I'm a basketball player at heart, so, like, I'm excited to actually learn all the terminology. I'm cool with, guys on the team, too, so hopefully they're watching this, and then, I'm going to talk to them about it now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll talk to my guys about some pick play. We have to do a little bit better in terms of being able to read pick coverages and taking what's available
Right.
for us. So
Okay, that's awesome. All right, yeah, yeah, man, and sticking on to this, your personal life with the game. Is there any positive or is there any impactful stories, whether it is positive or negative? When you're getting into the game of lacrosse, where you feel like you couldn't look past your race, like it was something that I know you were talking about freshman year, you already had that story, but like when you were playing the game and you finally got into it your sophomore year, or maybe a time in college at Mars Hill, is there any like story that you feel like you're like, man, like there's nothing, it's inevitable that you have to look at your race and the sport, and it's they have to connect in some way. They can't just coincide, and you can't just play the game without thinking about your race.
yeah, absolutely. I've had a few, unfortunately, more than a handful of
Yeah,
instances,
I'm assuming.
throughout my career, both as a player and as a coach. But I think that, early on in my career, probably like my first or maybe second year playing lacrosse, I was out hitting the wall like a lot of lacrosse players do, and had my own ball that I'd taken from, I didn't just take it, but no, my coach allowed me to take it for the weekend. Again, only one ball. Today that sounds, crazy because everybody comes out with buckets of balls, but like it was just a different time. I only had one stick, and that stick that I had, it was, at least the first stick I had was from Play It Again Sports. I was like, 'cause again, my mom was not going to invest a ton of money and not knowing if, this is really going to be something that I stuck with. So I had a Play It Again sports, brine shotgun, and it was so bad that one of my teammates, Lane Martin, if you're out there, God bless you, because Lane ended up giving me a new head. So I went from having again, I don't even know what the thing was, a brine shotgun, to having a pretty decent head, at least where I wouldn't get laughed at, when I stepped on the field. But I'm out again playing wall ball one afternoon, and some of the women from the women's lacrosse team, they're doing some kind of fundraiser, some kind of function, but they need a ball, and they couldn't find one. And so they asked for mine. I'm like, no problem. Like I'm hitting the wall right now, but like I can give you this to you afterwards because I need this for the weekend. And I was going to stick around anyway. Right. And one of the ladies said, well, Richard, like, what are you doing? Like, black people don't play lacrosse, and like you're struggling to hit the even play catch on the wall right now. Like just like go run track and give us the ball. Like it's probably too late for you to start now. It was just, I still remember her name and can see her face in my head. I won't say her name for obvious reasons, but I want to thank her too, because again, like that was a huge motivator for me, and again, I think we were able to make a career out of this. So wherever you are, thank you.
That's tough. That's a really cool moment to be able to thank someone who impacted you in a way where you may have been hurt at the time, but then you realize how impactful it can be in the future. That's really cool. Now I want to get down to some of the specifics now, because you are the coach here, and talking to some of the guys on the team though, man, it is really cool. Like I did know last year that you broke the school's goal record in your first year coaching. Congratulations on that. That's a really cool achievement. And I know you also have a statistical champion out of the Tusculum University for assists per game 1 year. I think that's really cool, and I really do like, as a basketball player, how you say they connect. Like, I think it is really cool. I mean, it seems like you have a pretty fast-paced approach to the game. So maybe talking a little bit about in the spring, like, what are you thinking about your approach and what it's going to be, and maybe based on last year, like what changes you're thinking about making while keeping your fast-paced ideologies.
Absolutely. I think that throughout my career, there's been several different versions of my philosophy, because I think the game is constantly evolving. So right. I'm never one that that's kind of like left behind when we talk about like the new developments or trends of the game. Like, I always try to stay ahead of things. So right now, yes, I am a coach that is definitely an advocate of up-tempo, really fast-paced ball, for sure. I wasn't always. Right. I was, really as recent as like 10 years ago, I was a guy that like, okay, I need to control every aspect of it, and we need to play half court or half field, lacrosse, and really be able to kind of have a situation that I can manage. And I don't believe that any longer. I don't think you can score goals that way. Right. So I think that when you talk about the way that we played last year and then transitioning into this year, we've actually, as a team, been talking about this quite a bit over the last month or so, but our methodology is evolving. We're going to continue to push the pace, because we think that it's much easier to score goals in transition than it is in settled play. And our guys are good at transition, so we want to continue to lean into that for sure. But when we talk about like the specific strategies, the things that we're implementing systematically on offense and on defense, we're taking a different approach this year. Last year, it was really kind of working with a very short window, and they're having to learn a whole new vocabulary, just new ways of thinking about lacrosse and seeing the way the game is played. And because of that, systematically, we just kind of like told them, okay, this is our offense, this is our defense, and here we go. But we really want to lean into the philosophy here at Haverford and have the players kind of inform the coaches what's going to be the best for us in terms of systems. So this fall is going to be a lot of, as a coaching staff, us focusing on the fundamentals of play, focusing on the principles of play. And as I guess in terms of systems, we're going to ask the players to kind of play with a lot of different systems, really specifically systems that we know that we're going to see a lot in the spring. And we feel that by doing it that way, the coach is focusing on the principles of play and the players just kind of like experimenting with a bunch of different systems. By the end of the fall, we have 20 practices in the fall. By the end of the fall, we're going to pretty much know, like, okay,
Yeah, what's
this,
going to work out for you.
No,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it seems like the fall is going to be, kind of a testing grounds for, what do you think can work? And it sounds like the players are going to have some good dialogue with you guys and what they're comfortable with, and maybe what you guys can all focus on, what's going to be best.
Absolutely,
for the team.
absolutely.
Right. Now, I think the coolest thing that when I was researching and stuff like that is to make a program from scratch like you did at Tusculum. And not only that, you had some pretty good years there too. To go 11-4 and be playing at conference championships and a statistical championship is really cool too. That really can show, specifically. It's funny also that, at Amherst you were you call it DC, defensive coordinator, right? So, how you're a defensive coordinator, and it's really cool to see how offensively minded you are in terms of scoring goals, fast break, and being in transition. But I wanted to talk specifically about Tusculum and maybe how that has impacted your experience throughout the rest of your coaching career. I think it's really cool to build a program from scratch, and obviously with that there's going to come a lot of hardship, a lot of pushback, a lot of doubt, and I just think that there's a direct effect with the rest of your coaching career and how you're thinking about how the game's adapting and how you're going to be approaching players. Now I'd ask you, like, what do you think from your experience at Tusculum that you used for that you're using for the rest of your coaching career? Maybe like it's from a moral standpoint with players. Maybe it's with how you're thinking about whatever. I mean, yeah, just maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I learn from every stop, that I've made throughout my career. Sometimes you learn, like, okay, well, that didn't work, and I need to kind of have a different approach to things. Or sometimes like, okay, that was really good. I need to make sure I take that to the next stop. But you said, I want to answer the question, but you said something that was really interesting to me that I'd like to kind of talk about a little bit. In fact, when we talk about the fact that yes, my background is defensive.
Yeah.
Play defense, and when you look at a lot of minority coaches in lacrosse, a lot of us specialize in defense.
Right.
Because a lot of us were kind of we didn't have a choice. Like, they give us a pole, or we get a short stick and we're told to play D-midi, but like, offense is not an option for a lot of minority players when they first get started. And I think it's important to note that yes, most of my background is defensive, because that's what those are the opportunities, right? Absolutely. But at the same time, and this is where I will actually give myself a little bit of credit. So you accomplished your goal there, but I do feel I have a lot of deficiencies as far as coaching goes, but lacrosse IQ is not one of them. I feel very well versed offensively, defensively, in every facet of the game. I feel very confident in my ability to teach. Maybe not so much goaltending, but everywhere else, I feel extremely confident in my ability to teach the game. So I bring that up because regardless of what coaching stops I make, I always think it's important that when we start to kind of put a team together, when we talk about the midfield position, a position that's really kind of very versatile, and people want to make it a lot more specialized. But no, you play offense and you play defense, but that's not how the game was originated, right?
Right.
And there has to be some specialization to a certain extent for sure, but I try not to just kind of like pigeonhole folks, because like somebody that's been told from day one, no, you're a D-midi, that's all you ever play. Well, why can't that person play offense? Is it because they really don't have the skill set, or because they were never granted the opportunity? So that's one thing that we learned at Tusculum, is that, like, let's look at people as lacrosse players, and then from there, let's figure out where they can best help us, for sure, regardless of like maybe any kind of like preconceived notions about where they may play on the field. And I think that philosophy has really kind of helped us to play faster here, because we teach all skills to all positions, and we really try to play a positionless brand of lacrosse.
That's a really interesting perspective. Like, I mean, I don't think anybody, any viewer could really understand. Maybe some lacrosse players at this point can understand, because obviously things are changing now, hopefully for the better, in terms of equity and inclusion within the sport. But like, it is very interesting how you're going to be put in a position like you didn't really have a choice, like you said, and many other minority coaches didn't have a choice. And it's cool that you're teaching all general skills across all positions to be able to put anybody in whatever type of success that they're best in. So we're gonna wrap this up, but I have one more cool thing that I wanted to talk about. So word around campus, especially with your players, because I'm cool with those guys. That you're one of the best motivational speakers on this campus in terms of pre-game speeches. That's what they're saying. So, I think this is a really cool opportunity. I wanted to, kind of, bring this back to, to you. And, we've been talking about your experiences for a little bit. Now, maybe you don't have to look directly at the camera. Maybe you can act like it's me. But maybe you can talk in hypotheticals. But, is there a motivational, if you were to give a motivational speech to yourself in that moment that that girl was trying to tell you down when you were playing wall ball, maybe I don't know if it was a moment of doubt right there. I don't know if it was a moment of discouragement. I don't know how you were feeling, but if you could tell yourself maybe a 30-second motivational speech in that moment, you can go back in time just for this. What are you going to tell yourself in that moment?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot here for sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
As I kind of tell our guys, the speeches that I give them before games, they're words. They're not meant to. If you need a speech to kind of get up for a game, then you're probably doing the wrong thing.
Right.
But at the same time, I think I like to just kind of talk to them and let them understand kind of the moment and have a better understanding of it. So when we talk about those speeches, they're all organic. I don't plan these things out.
Yeah,
and
it's straight out of passion.
And I also I tell them too. It's not rah-rah either. So I don't record them or have people record me. I don't do it for YouTube and all that. So it's about us. So so it is tough to kind of just put something together here quickly. But and I also.
That's why I said, speaking hypotheticals, if you were would you maybe be trying to encourage him? Would you be trying to give him tough love? Something like that. Coddle him? I don't know. Coddle you?
Yeah. I think I would kind of just talk a little bit about setting a goal and sticking to it. So if you find something that you love, something that you're passionate about, something that you really want to lean into. Your path to becoming better, your path to becoming an expert in that field, you're going to have hurdles along the way. That's to be expected. And when you meet those hurdles, you can't run away from them. You can't go around them. You just got to go through them, and you got to be ready to take that challenge on, from the very onset of it. Because at the end of the day, people want to see you fail. They want to see you give it up, and just don't, because every single hurdle that you defeat, every single one that you overcome, you're going to become stronger. And eventually you're going to get to the point where people are looking at you saying, there's nothing that person can't accomplish, nothing that person can't do. That's the most determined person I know. So anytime I see anybody getting challenged, anytime I see anybody being told, no, you can't do that, I'm very, very happy to be that voice in your head saying, you know what, yes, you can. Prove them wrong. And I'll be the first person there applauding when you accomplish that goal as well. So, again, that's my little motivational piece right there.
You don't understand. You just did it. You just did it. We all saw that. Yeah. That was awesome, man. Well, I'm fired up now. I'm fired up. I'm going to the track at 4 p.m. So now I'm going to be thinking about that when I'm running. And I don't need the motivation. I have my own internal motivation, but It is nice to have the extra boost, man. That's really cool. That's really cool. You can do that on the fly like that.
Again, I don't know how good that was, but
that was good. We're gonna highlight that for sure. But no, man, I'm so appreciative you've been able to come on the show and talk for a little bit. So, I can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate it. We're wrapping up this part of the segment. Coach Carrington, we really appreciate you, man.
Oh, thank you, Jackson.
Hope you have a great rest of your day. All right, see you guys.